What would you say is one of the most challenging transitions for a homeschool mom? Certainly, transitioning into that first homeschool year is a big shift. Transitioning into the high school years, also a big step in trust. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the transition, bringing a new child into our home, growing that child, birthing that child, trying to get some sleep, trying to maintain sanity, trying to continue homeschooling, and all the things. This is a very large transition in a homeschool mom's life. If you're considering bringing a new baby into your family, or you're anticipating another significant event in your family, this podcast episode is for you. Welcome to the Homeschool Mama Self-Care Podcast. I'm Teresa Wiedrick, certified life coach, homeschool mentor, and graduated homeschool mom of 4 who walks beside other homeschool moms so they can become more confident, competent, and happier homeschool moms. I support them to shed what's not working so they can show up in their homeschool and mom lives authentically, confidently, and purposefully. So if that's you, welcome. On today's episode, I have a delightful conversation with a second-generation homeschool mom. She is a mother of 3 young boys. Toward the end of our conversation here, we discuss strategies to address the challenges and transition into the postpartum phase of motherhood as you're homeschooling. You'll hear Trina share wise insights about relationships in the homeschool family, about how to engage yourself, your sense of guilt and responsibility, about maternal gatekeeping, learning to be willing to receive help and also asking for help, feeling responsible for your children's feelings, prioritizing connection, understanding different parts of our mother selves and asking who is in charge, and accepting that things are always changing, and this is just as the homeschool mom life is supposed to be. There are so many beautiful mothering insights in this conversation, and I am so grateful for the time that I've had with Trina, and I think you are going to love this conversation too. So welcome to the Homeschool Mama Self-Care Podcast, Trina. It's such a pleasure to have you here in my closet, Studio C. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Me too. I am too. It's been a beautiful journey that you've had over the last year. For those that haven't met you, would you introduce you, your family, and where you came from in the last year, but also in your homeschool journey?
Ooh, that's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am a mother of 3 precious little boys, 7, 3.5, and 9 months old.
9 months.
So we've been on the homeschool journey since the very beginning. I quit my job and stayed home with my first, and I'm a second generation homeschooler. So it kind of never really occurred to me as a choice. It just was what we did. But we're really in the thick of it now, so that's been really fun. We're from North Carolina. And yeah, we're doing the homeschool thing. And I started talking with you when I was preparing like an Olympian for postpartum.
Yes. Amen, sister. You were amazing.
Yeah. So that's kind of where this all got started, was just trying to be really prepared for what all postpartum is, and more specifically what it is when you are a homeschooler and you're always home with your family. And my husband also works from home, so we're all 5 of us home all the time. It's been a great journey and one that you've helped me so much with, so I'm excited to talk about it.
And I have been honored to do so. I just wish I could actually hold your little one. Micah, he's 9 months old. Wow, where did that time go? Are you starting to sleep through the night?
Yeah, so he's finally, it's very new that we're actually sleeping all the way through the night. But yeah, getting good sleep, feeling like a full human again.
Yeah. I just actually spoke about this, I don't know if yesterday, I released a podcast episode about a composite of a homeschool mom. And one of the discussion points is if you want to feel human, you need to have sleep. And
Mm.
it's really tricky because as a postpartum nurse, back in the day, I was taught no co-sleeping. And then I had a baby and then I said, yeah, I'm going to co-sleep because there's no way
Right.
I'm sleeping otherwise. But then my oldest was like 10 months when she finally slept through the night. That was a really, really long, hard period and a massive wow introduction to motherhood. But I also had that tail end experience with my fourth, who didn't sleep through the night, to honest to goodness, 7 years old, because we went up to the Arctic one summer and completely threw out his sleep for a summer. And so that really messed things for him. And that meant that I had, I don't know, 15 years of broken sleep, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
And my experience is a long time. Just don't keep having kids. That's the key. But I
Right.
think, or do, whatever. But my experience was not feeling human, just like you said. And so sometimes we need to do what we need to do to make that sleep happen because it's not advantageous for our kids to not feel human.
Yeah, you never realize how important your sleep is until you're in that situation, especially homeschooling. I keep saying that, but especially homeschooling because you know, you're wearing all these hats and you're trying to educate your children and maybe you're working part-time like me and um you're just doing so many things and you have to have sleep or
Yeah.
all of the things start to crumble. So you realize how precious it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is because it,
Yeah.
it completely shifts how you see everything.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to hear what other wellness strategies you've learned to incorporate over the last year or so.
Oh, wow. I feel like it's constantly changing too, which has been something I have had to learn to appreciate is that I'm not crazy, that it's always changing, that
Uh-huh.
things always changing is actually the way it's supposed to be, and that you
Yeah.
should use your intuition to tell you when things are the right thing for you. Like exercise, you might be like, okay, I'm 6 weeks and I had or 6 weeks postpartum, I had my, appointment with the doctor and they said I could do all these things that I want to do. And that might not be right for you right now. And it's
Yeah.
okay if it's not. But I think that part of me that's like, okay, they say 6 weeks, so now you're supposed to be doing this and this and this. And so it's changed a lot. I'm just now able to start exercising where it feels good for me to do that because I'm getting sleep.
Exactly.
And, taking more time for myself and feeling like I can accept help. That's been a huge one. Accepting help, any and all help. Hold the baby? Yes. Here, take the baby. Or, someone wants to bring you a meal or just offers anything to you. You just
Yeah.
need to, yes.
That
Um,
is a really big one because we are all very self-sufficient and also in the last few years, kind of community less. There's a lot of challenges after the pandemic where people felt a lot more disconnected from various people. I hear that all the time.
mhm.
And I know it actually from experience as well. And so that experience makes people, feel even less community based. And then there's even less help for each other and asking people and saying, actually, could you help me? That's a huge step towards your own self-care, really.
Yeah. And you've actually identified two different things, which are one is accepting help when it's offered, which is already hard enough. And the
Yeah.
other is asking proactively for help. That one was nearly off the list for me before we
Yes.
started talking. So,
Yes. I interrupt this episode to invite you to the 8-week Reimagine Your Homeschool group coaching program that's about to begin on July 2nd. If you identify with the energy of this conversation between Trina and I, you're transitioning into a big season of your homeschool life, or you felt overwhelmed and frustrated over the last year and you don't have a practical plan to address it, that is one element of the Reimagine group coaching program that we'll be discussing. You'll come away from our time together with greater clarity on what really has been happening in the last year. What are the real dynamics that are contributing to your dissatisfaction or stress or overwhelm in your homeschool mom life? But that's just one discussion point in this Reimagine group coaching program. We'll also focus our attention on strengthening your relationships with your kids, helping you to create a connected, supportive homeschool community, helping you to streamline your routine for greater effectiveness and also more presence, like you being present in your homeschool days, and putting away motivation myths that we tell ourselves that don't really work, but compel us to stress our children out and also frustrate ourselves. Over 8 weeks, you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a customized action plan for your family's unique needs. I know you want to be a confident, competent, satisfied homeschool mom who feels empowered to create a family life that aligns with her family values, priorities, and home education goals. I know you want to create a homeschool that engages your kids so you raise them to become independent, resourceful humans who live purposeful lives. I know you want to get clear on your triggers and challenges and create a plan to address them. I know you want to experience satisfying relationships with your partner, your family, and your community, and you want to live a flourishing homeschool family life. To do that, you need to get clear on what's been happening in your home, deschool unhelpful mindsets, reimagine this home education lifestyle, and instill routine wellness strategies to nurture you too. The problem is, as I've learned, you've got unrealistic expectations. Welcome to the crowd. You don't have enough time to assess your situation objectively, and your perfectionistic tendencies demand you stay on that hamster wheel of busy. Often there's a gnawing sense that you're not doing enough, but if you were asked what is enough, you'd not know how to answer that. You even feel stressed and overwhelmed at times, and your response is to demand the house be tidied, the lessons get done, or instead you just collapse on the sofa and declare it an unschool day. I believe you can choose a growth mindset. Get clear on your challenges, create an action plan to grow and learn alongside your kids. Maybe not just how to flip fractions and multiply. Yes, you'll be learning that too, but you'll also be learning how to emotionally regulate, attend to your needs, show up in relationships more intentionally, and create an intentional, more child-inspired educational approach. I know you've got a lot going on. Homeschool is a saturated, absorbing experience, and you don't always have support. So that's why I offer an opportunity to walk alongside you. So step 1, you're welcome to clarify your homeschool and life goals, your challenges, and your expectations with me. Just book a no obligation conversation. You can find the booking link on the first page of my website, capturingthecharmedlife.com. Step 2 will be us determining specific goals, priorities, and focus areas so we can create an individualized action plan for you. Step 3 is to address those challenges and explore new strategies or tools and track the progress with gentle accountability. And step 4 is to create ongoing support with weekly email interaction addressing a specific scenario perhaps and addressing your specific questions. So, is it time that you no longer want to feel uncertain, overwhelmed, unrealistic, or frustrated as you're moving into the next year and instead build a more confident you? You can do this in 2 ways. You can join me in a no obligation conversation to discuss one-on-one coaching, or you can join me in the upcoming Reimagine Your Homeschool Life group coaching program, an 8-week session throughout the summer. You can reimagine your homeschool life. So join me.
Absolutely.
Well, you are so capable though. Like you're unusually no, I don't know, unusually. We homeschool moms in general are just like very resourceful, but
Yeah.
you're very, I think, did we come to the conclusion you're an Enneagram type 1? Because y'all just definitely know, you definitely know what the next steps are and you can see things clearly. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and then it'll happen. And you're internally very resourceful anyway.
Yeah. And I think when you start digging into the Enneagram stuff, which I very recently, have, you start looking at the flip side of look at all the strengths are really cool, but I love that it also shows you some of the pitfalls, like your common pitfalls. Um, because you go, oh yeah, like you are the type that has a lot of energy and a lot of stamina and can just keep going, but you tend to burn out. You tend
Yeah.
to not ask for help. So it shows you your blind spots and you go, oh yeah, that does sound like
Yeah.
me. And I think if you can start looking at yourself like how you would treat a friend or a family member, be like, you don't have to do it all. Like we
Yeah.
know you can, okay? Like you proved it. You can do it, but you don't have to, and it probably feels better if you don't. So
Yeah, that is
just
so much more challenging when you're in that phase of parenting, like postpartum, where you've got a little baby and you want to fully be present and nurturing and doing all the close things. You know the time is going fast, especially because this was your third kiddo, so you know it happens quickly, and then you know you want to be staying with that child, but at the same time you're like, I would just like to do anything else. Like I would like to be able to do something to make the house look a little more presentable or to get back into the routine that I had. I remember that. And only recently, someone else had shared with me and gave me permission to share carrots. That was my way to remember this, that she had an opportunity to just be with her baby on the sofa. And her mom said, it's okay. You just go be with your baby. And she said, no, I just want to chop the carrots. Please take the baby so I can just chop the carrots.
yes, I can relate to that so much.
Me
Um,
too.
and I think too, I never really understood until my third child. You just kind of made me think of this. Until my third child, it never occurred to me, and I'm sure it was some conversation that we had or um, that I had with my therapist that I got once I found out I was having baby number three was maternal gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of that. I was not aware of that. Um, but it really helped me to know that me deciding that I was the only capable parent, that only I was able to, love my children this specific way, and that if they weren't with me, they were somehow missing out on some kind of love that only I had,
Yeah.
or that things weren't going to be done precisely the way that I do them.
Yep.
I had never considered that I was robbing them of things like flexibility. Okay, mom doesn't make sandwiches like this, but dad does. And now you know how to eat sandwiches two different ways instead
Yeah.
of only the way mom makes it.
Yeah.
Um, that a grandparent can be such a special person in your life, and spending time with them is so valuable to them. And those relationships are just as important, that they have those and that they experience people with different ideas. And um, I don't know, you get what I mean. But
I do.
I just, in my head, it was if I wasn't the one doing the things, whatever the things were, I was failing them and I felt guilt.
Yeah.
And once I learned about maternal gatekeeping, it was like, oh, I am like helping them by allowing others to fulfill their roles
Yeah.
as grandparent, father, friend, whatever it is, for them to build these strong relationships. I can't hold all of that, and I shouldn't hold all of that. But it isn't when you take the focus off of you and what you're feeling, and you're like, this is good for them. It allows personalities like mine to let it go, because then you know you're doing a good thing. So that
Yeah.
helps me
I
so
mean,
much.
yeah, I mean, okay, two thoughts I've got. One, let's maybe if you want to unpack the concept of maternal gatekeeping in the way that you see it as relevant for you, but also for those listening, I often have a conversation with moms about guilt. And we always feel like, well, if we only did dot, 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 or if we could show up more here. And that is like, I think a maternal rite of passage to feel guilt. But what I know about Enneagram is that ones do it like really well. Like there is no missing the mark. You must actually do
Right.
it perfectly. There's a lot greater intensity around doing the right thing. So would you share a little bit about maternal gatekeeping and also how you've learned to process or at least have a relationship with maternal guilt?
Yeah, I think to me, what maternal gatekeeping is just deciding that you're the only person who can do anything as it pertains to your children.
Yeah.
You will do it the right way. No one else will do it the right way. And everything is on you. All the pressure is on you. All the responsibility is yours. Um, and so really leaning into like, why is that the wrong thing for you and your children and their other parent and the grandparents or whoever it is that's also in your life.
Yeah.
That's huge. If you
Yeah.
can dig into that and figure that out, it unlocks a whole lot of other stuff. And then as it relates to guilt, I think I felt so much guilt all the time. If I went and got my hair cut, it was like, I can't believe I asked someone else to watch my kids so that I could get my hair cut. Like, what a selfish thing to do when, like, I don't need to get my hair cut. I just want to.
Yes.
Or, I want to go, no, to see, even that's wrong. When I had to do physical therapy, after childbirth, I had to go. I needed to go. And all 3 times I needed to go. And the first 2 times I went for a few sessions and was like, I'll be okay. I'll figure it out at home by myself. Now that I know what they're doing and what I should do, I'll just do it myself at home. And I'm sure you can guess I didn't, because when you're home and there's so much going on, you don't take care of yourself. The third time, because I radically chose to change every single thing before baby was born, I went for, I think, like 5 months before the baby was born, like every week. And gosh, I don't know, 3 or 4 months postpartum. And it just, if I had to go, I had to go. And I didn't mind asking, because it was like, why did I think that this was a want and not a need? Like my physical body, like, why did I think? But it's that guilt. It's that piece of guilt. Yeah.
So again, I have a couple thoughts. First of all, immediately I start doing Kegels. As soon as you start saying that, I'm like, okay, Kegels, right, Kegels. And I'm not going to ask you the details of your physiotherapy in that, but that tendency, what you just said, to be, when you're at home, it's hard to take care of yourself. It's so true, because there's just so many voices. There's so much going on. And when you talk about maternal gatekeeping, I think as an Enneagram 2, I am like the queen of gatekeeping, because if my child feels something, how am I responsible for that? How do I allow my kids to have their own journey or their own stories or their own experiences without trying to rescue or make things right, or whatever it is I perceive? So I very much relate to that concept too.
Yeah, I think you hit on another thing there, which is like feeling responsible for your children's feelings.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I feel like has changed for me. And again, it's like, you get one of those unlocks.
Yeah.
Where you just see it. You're like, oh, how did I not see this? And then all of a sudden you see it, and you start seeing how it kind of reverberates into all these areas of your life.
Yeah.
But especially raising little boys who, like, they're just so physical and they need to make mistakes and get hurt. And not that girls don't too, but just kind of, that's my whole space, is boy mom.
Yes.
I'm digging into how they learn differently and how their bodies always need to be moving and all these things. And you just kind of want to be like, oh, don't do this. This is going to happen. And you want to over explain, like, why this isn't a good idea, or this. Like, I could finally kind of release and say, this is not part of my job. Like, I teach them how to be safe and all these things. But at the end of the day, like, did we not all have to make a lot of mistakes to figure it out? We did.
Yes. Yes.
And we too. And we still want to. Like, think about, you still would have instances in your life, or at least I do, where I'm like, I know I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't want your help. I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
Even in my mid to late 30s, I still am like, just let me screw it up. I just want to screw this up so that I'll learn. And I always tell my kids, like, your brain is growing. Like, your physical brain is growing when you are making mistakes. This is a good thing. Why we started thinking that making mistakes was really harmful, I don't know where that came from.
I don't know, but I mean, I still don't like making mistakes. But at the same time, I know that it is human, and I'm going to.
Yeah.
Or just like you were sharing, sometimes you have these moments where you're like, oh, wait, if I knew dot, dot, dot before, then I wouldn't have made those mistakes, except that you're at the place you're at in your life now, and now you know. So
Mhm.
now you want to do something with it. And when you do respond to it, everything does reverberate. There is actual benefit to your kids or to whoever was involved when you figure something out. So, what to say about, not being a perfect human. I guess it's a rite of passage. We just can't.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfectionism is a big discussion in, a lot of conversations that I have with people, trying to do things right. So I think this definitely speaks to the feeling of not quite ever enough and not quite hitting that perfect space. And it's just not, in my experience, a possibility.
Oh, for sure. And I think when you look at it through the lens of homeschooling, we're their mother, which is a huge enough role, and we're their teacher.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes the pressure of that can feel like a lot. I get that.
Yeah.
Um, because you're realizing that, if they don't make good grades in school, you're like, is that my fault? Having that pressure of like, oh my gosh. Whereas if your kids were in school and they had a bad grade, you go, I wonder if it's some teacher or, and like my husband and I'll joke about it sometimes, like, I wonder if it's the teacher.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
comes to me. So, um,
So, is there a process that you've gone through, an internal process that you engage when you are feeling those, I call them uncomfortable feelings, because I know they're not bad, but they're uncomfortable, like guilt or feeling like, oh, this isn't enough, or whatever other things you might experience.
I think one of the things that I think is so helpful, you and I talked about this the other day, even of how this keeps playing out to me in my head, something that you taught me, um, is just this like kind of getting into like the curiosity mode instead
Yeah.
of judging, but let's just start getting curious. And one of the things that you would ask me when we would get in some of these discussions would be like, what does it say about you that you made this mistake? And the second you ask yourself that question, you immediately start to defend yourself in a positive way, I guess. Like, well, obviously it doesn't say anything about me that I made a mistake. I'm a human being. It says I'm a human. And of course I didn't want this to happen. And I'm a good mother, but I did make this mistake. Or, you know,
Yeah.
what does it say about you that you lost your patience today when you were working on math with your kids?
Yeah.
It means that you are human with feelings and you have your limits. And maybe the takeaway is just, hey, when I'm feeling this way, I can teach my kids that it's okay to take a minute and just, hey, I'm going to walk outside and take a few deep breaths and then I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Let's go do it together,
Yeah.
what I need it too. But I think letting them in on the process, that's one of the huge benefits of homeschooling is they're watching you live your life and they're going to pick up whatever you're putting down. So
So
that's
true.
always
Yeah.
fun.
So true.
Um,
When I hear about people doing character development stuff, I'm like, I think that's not necessary. Just, invest time in your personal growth because that's the stuff that's going to actually impact. And maybe even like years, you won't know exactly what it was you did or communicated. But whatever is really true is going to be communicated. They will see the value of whatever you are, whoever you are, really.
yeah, children are mirrors, and
Yes.
it is very humbling.
Yes.
If you see something you don't like, if
Yep.
you take a second and think about it, you're like, you know what? I'm really impatient when I do X, Y, Z. I
Yeah.
see things or I'll hear things that they'll say or whatever. I'm like, oh, I really need to think about taking a pause and modeling for them how I would want them to behave
Yeah.
in situations. But yeah, all of the character development stuff and pretty much like everything you're teaching your kids, it all becomes about teaching yourself first. And
Yes.
I think
Amen,
that was
sister.
like so humbling. You're like, oh, I have to. It's all usually anything parenting related. It's like I used to think it would be strategies for how to get your kid to do what you want.
Yeah, me too. That was all the parenting stuff that I read before I had kids. And then I had kids and I went, this is all nonsense. Like none of these parenting books apply. Or maybe they
Right.
do today, but not tomorrow. Or maybe with this child, but not that child. And this season, not that season. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
In fact, trusting your intuition. If I were to declare a parenting stance, I would say trust your intuition. And some people will be like, "Ooh, I don't know if that's really reliable." And I'm like, that is more reliable than a lot of other, other dictates that you hear, a lot of parenting books. It's a lot more reliable. And also you need to be congruent with whatever you really believe. Either have what you really believe challenged, or maybe go to different people and say, what do you think about it, and process that. But whatever you really believe needs to align with how you're engaging your kids.
Oh, 100%. And figuring out like what are our like family core values
Yeah.
and what is it that we're trying to achieve? Because I think sometimes I went through an exercise once. Like, what is it that you're looking for? Like, what are you trying to do with your family? And um, it was a book on resilience for kids, and they were talking about. I wish I could think of the name. It's the guy who does who owns the company that does like the Tough Mudder and things like that. Um, but he was talking about resilience for kids and having a family motto. And um,
Mm.
he was saying if you can define your goals, because if you say, is your goal obedience? Because that is going to be an interesting journey for you.
Good luck with that.
Um,
Yes.
if the sum of what you figure out is like, if the goal is obedience, you end up, your actions are all like, do this, be like this. And it's this never enoughness that you're kind of
Yeah,
communicating to your kids. If
right.
you prioritize connection, you get obedience. You get all these other benefits that you're actually aiming at. You're just doing it differently. You're spending time together, spending time doing what they want to do. You're listening to them. You're answering all of the thousands of questions that they have and not making them feel bad about asking all
Yeah.
the
So connection is your focus for you.
connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Connection. Yeah. And I don't know if if I'm taking this on a tangent, but I always say this, I'm somehow always connecting the relationship that we have with our kids or with other people. It's always a reflection of our own relationship with ourselves. And I used to think that was light and fluffy convo, like a very light conversation. But now I see, no, it really is a direct translation. It's a mirroring. However we engage ourselves is how we're relating to other people. Nurturing the nurturer. That's why I go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So really doing the self-exploration of how am I really thinking about myself, or what am I expecting of myself? Because that will translate into how they are receiving that. But when we're connected with ourselves and we're affirming of ourselves, or accepting, then, or forgiving, or grace-filled, or whatever it is we need, then we're more likely to allow that kind of, energy connection to be with our important people.
Yeah. That's so good. Very true.
Yeah. And a hard one to learn because that means you
Oh,
really
for
know
sure.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it always starts with yourself. That's the funniest part.
Yeah.
Any relationship you're trying to change, you're like, I feel like they need to do
Yeah.
XYZ. You
Yeah.
can't change another person. You can change you. And then usually that is what brings about the change. But
Yeah. So true.
it's always you. Isn't that annoying? It's always you.
Yeah.
I hope it's my fault. Like I have lived my life that way really, where I'm like, I kind of hope this is my fault because that means I can fix it.
Yeah.
Um, the more responsibility I have in a relationship, the more power I have to change it. Um, and it is like, it's just internal work, getting to know yourself better and the parts of yourself. That was another like really big unlock for me was the parts of yourself. You and I had talked about was like internal family systems and
Yeah.
understand all the parts of yourself and kind of defining who's in charge right now, which
Yeah.
part of myself is steering, and who do I want to choose to allow to steer? That was huge for me too.
The IFS. Yeah. If
Yeah.
people aren't familiar with this, when I first heard it, I thought it sounded really like, ooh, too out there. Um, Internal family systems, like you have a family of different people inside of you. So as soon as I say that, people are like, what the? But really, we use this in common speech. We always say, well, this part of me thinks this, and this part of me thinks that, and I'm not quite sure how I should proceed. And the reality is we have many parts, and some of them are trying to manage things to make sure that things in our lives stay in control and we feel safe. And some of them are just immediately trying to rescue, or, we have many different parts, but sometimes some of them are speaking more loudly and other ones don't have a lot of voice. And so really getting familiar with that is the internal family systems concept in a nutshell, in a very tiny nutshell. But it is a really useful way for us to understand ourselves more. I remember this discussion about personal growth. I remember a mom saying to me one time, I just want to make sure that I haven't screwed up my kids. And I was like, if I'm honest with you, you're going to do things that you're like, whoa, I shouldn't have done something. And I'm not saying that we should just be happy with that, but we are not going to have everything figured. And then I asked another podcast guest, her name is Sarah Susanka, the author of The Not So Big Life. She's not a parent herself, but she said the most profound parenting wisdom I ever recall. I said, what would you say to that mom who's worried about messing up her kids? And she said, as soon as you figure out the things that you need to figure out in life and you own your responsibility for that thing, then, as you just said, everything starts to shift. Then how other people relate to you or how you are engaging your kids or whatever shifts, they see you differently, they engage you differently, and, everything changes. And I was like, oh, so there's like always hope no matter what. And that is, I believe, what we want is to know that there is hope past our imperfections. And there are. And I'm like, that directly, I thought, connected with what you just said.
Yeah, I have joked with my mom about, because you can't even understand until you're a parent. I think it is really hard to understand the love and the burden of being like, what is it that I'm gonna do? Because like I think, especially this generation, I think we're so aware of like we don't want to have our kids go to therapy and talk about us.
I'm
Tell
okay with it now. Believe it or not, I am like, it's almost like a rite of passage. You should definitely go to therapy.
But I'm like, oh no, but what is it that I'm gonna do? And I remember joking with my mom because I feel like I understand her better now that I'm a parent. I just see things
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
differently, like how difficult things can be. And she was an amazing mother.
Mhm.
And but I can see like, oh man, like even little things like we went camping this past weekend and the whole time was like, the baby wouldn't sleep. And so I'm walking the whole campground with the
Oh,
stroller, trying to get him to, I tried like 20
oh,
different things. And finally I was like, I guess I'm going on a walk. And we're with all our friends and everyone's together but me. And I'm just walking the baby. And
mm,
I'm thinking about on my walk, I'm thinking about my memories of camping were just like freedom and fun and like no responsibilities. And I'm going, oh my God, my mom, it probably took her like, well, and my dad, it took them probably days to get ready for this camping trip.
yes,
And I'm just showing up, having fun, I'm probably
yes,
and wet and who knows, I don't know, eating all the
completely unaware of how much work it was. Yeah.
um but yeah, all of that to say, I have joked with her like, if I could figure out what it is that I'm gonna screw up, that would be so great. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
What am I gonna do to my kids? Because
In
I
my
would my
experience, you don't have that. Yeah,
boy,
you
you
don't get
know?
a manual for that.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I can just show my kids that that's how much I love them, like I would, if I could just take away that thing that I know I'm gonna do, I would give anything to do it. If I can share that, what that love feels like,
Yeah.
then I feel like you can somehow cover whatever it is that you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. I understand. I do
They
get
feel
that.
that love. Yeah.
I think like for where I'm at right now, all I see is that I'm going to keep showing up on purpose and keep learning and growing. Because, I know I get feedback from people listening to the podcast that say it feels like you're real and you're being honest about your struggles. And I'm like, good, because I definitely don't have this figured out. And I'm aware of that. But one
Right.
thing I see is that it's not done. My parenting isn't done, even though it's radically different than where I was in your stage. It's very different having mostly grown kids. And, and I'm doing hindsight is 2020 only with the people that have homeschooled behind me, not the people that have like 30-year-olds or whatever. And so anyways, my experience is very much like you're still growing me and you're going to be growing alongside your kids forever. And they are not in the space now, my kids, where they are like, hey, mom, can I have this kind of cereal? Or mom, am I allowed to dot, dot, dot? They're not asking me permission. This is their life. They're going to do their life the way they're going to do it. But I'm still engaging my own growth challenges. I'm still having to look at myself and say, where do I need to grow so that I can show you I'm available to you, to understanding you in a way I've never understood you before. That's still happening, even where I'm at. I think that's the only goal is just to agree to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And just to make yourself available. Like if they know how
Yeah.
available you are, like you just kind of you gently slide into the observer role
Yeah.
and like and I remember that with my mom. Um I like I said, I'm a second generation homeschooler. During
Yeah.
that time we were so well still are so close, but our connection definitely I can't imagine it would have been the same if we hadn't
Beautiful.
homeschooled.
Yeah.
Because we were together every second of every day as
Yep.
my children. And I eventually did go to public school for middle and high school.
Yeah.
But once I was in those high school years, and I was like, especially as a type one, like we've discussed, it was like, get out of my way. I want to do my thing. I'm capable. I want to do these things. There was like always this high level of trust,
Hmm.
and that totally kept me in check all the time.
The high level of trust kept you in track. Tell me
Oh,
more. Yeah.
oh, like, oh my goodness. If it had been the opposite, I had friends who, their parents were just like on them all the time. Even if they
Yeah.
had great grades and they were good kids, it's like, where are you going to be? What are you doing? What,
Yeah.
asking all these questions. And it's like, just by asking all the questions
Yeah.
and having that like tight feeling, you could get this sense that I'm never going to make you think that I can handle this. Um, Whereas for me, it was like, if you need us, you call us. If you make a mistake, um, you call us.
Yeah.
If you need anything, you call us.
Yeah.
We're not going to ask you a million questions. We're here and we trust you. And it was like, oh, the second you say we trust you,
Yeah.
you want to be that person that they say you are. And
Yes.
you're going to prove them right that you're that same trustworthy person. So I never got in trouble
Hmm.
in school, ever.
You know what? I love hearing that. It is actually encouraging for me because I have a type 1 kiddo right now who's in high school years.
Mm,
And that's exactly my experience is that I know I can trust him.
mm,
And my husband and I in the last few weeks were like, what is the recipe for a really independent kid? Because we have clearly raised four of them. And like they're all very different in how they relate. And they were very different in our homeschools, but they're all very independent. And I'm like, maybe we should have just encouraged them to stay home till they're 25 because we do have an empty basement. But really, they don't have that kind of I don't know, cliche, stay in your basement kind of energy for 25 years. I kind of wish they did, but they don't. And like, what did we do that made them feel unafraid to au pair in Italy this summer? Or that's not me. I kind of wish I was an au pair in Italy right now, but my daughter's about to be. And then all my kids are doing like these bigger things. And I'm like, what did we do? Is this like we did something wrong here? And I had a friend who shared with me the book, The Anxiety Generation. I think it's doing really
uh-huh.
everybody's talking about it. And she said to me, I think you did everything right there, actually. And I'm like, really? okay, well, I didn't do everything right, by the way, but I was like, they definitely are independent. They're definitely independent minded. And where was I going with that? Really, that what are the ingredients for that? Because I identify that in you as well, that you have this kind of like, I was trusted, and so then I followed through. And also, I'm capable to this. And my parents
Mhm.
believed I was capable to this. And so then you did.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is modeling, like we were talking about. Like my parents were both really good examples of like actually living the way that they wanted us to live,
Yeah.
which was to take risks and
Yeah.
to go like, this is what I want and I'm gonna get it. I'm capable of getting it. It's not like, wow, that sounds really hard. I guess I won't have that. Or that sounds really unusual, like au pair, like, going and living abroad and being an au pair. It's like, wow, that sounds unusual and hard. So I probably can't do that. Like that was never a thought to me. It was always, hey, this is what we want to do. This is what we're going to do. We're
Yeah.
going to go for it. And we always just went for it. And they lived that way. So I think if you, again, it comes back to working on yourself. How cool that we get to be so selfish and that we're helping our kids. Um, but really, it does so much. Like when I was in high school, my mom, she started, which she had always stayed home with us, um, to homeschool. And then we transitioned to school and she was still home, but she started flipping houses. And it was kind of that like really cool time to flip houses. And she was just a boss babe out there flipping houses.
I love
My
that.
dad doing a lot of the manual work and all that. And she's coordinating and doing all this stuff. It was great. It was really cool to watch them. They saw an opportunity and they went for it. And so I grew up with that mentality of entrepreneurial state of mind. Like my dad would have all these side businesses and all this stuff going. We always had a million things going. We lived in the country with goats. We were just unconventional.
I know. I
Did all
love that. I absolutely love that. First of all, thank you to your parents to create this beautiful daughter because you really are such a lovely person and so capable. But really, the off the beaten path experience that every homeschool family has, we take it. Sometimes we don't take it fully though, full throttle. But it feels like your parents really did. I know that we really did. I am 100% certain y'all are doing that. We can take that off the beaten path experience of home education. Which one is the chicken and the egg, though? Like, are we doing it because we're already off the beaten path in spirit?
right.
Hard to know. But we keep moving into it and we become more and more ourselves and we keep doing things that are even more meaningful for ourselves. And then we're showing that or reflecting that to our kids. And so they just kind of presume, yeah, this is what life is. We just do what we do because that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you said that the chicken and the egg because I think it can be both because we are desiring to live in a way that's different and anyone who's listening right now has probably already made that decision. They've began pursuing homeschooling. So there's
Yeah.
probably other things in their life that are unconventional as
Yeah.
well. Um, but then once you decide to do that, it's another unlock. You go, okay, we're doing things differently. What else could we do differently? And you
Yes.
start examining your life. Like, am I doing these things on purpose?
Yeah.
Am I making a lot of these life decisions on purpose? Or are
Mhm.
these parts of my life kind of on autopilot because this is what most people do?
Yeah.
And so I think you do end up, it's just that homeschooler mind, like you start examining different parts of your life and
Yeah.
saying, is this the direction we are intending to go? Is this the example we want to show our kids of what their life could look like? So
Yeah.
we keep changing our minds and making new decisions and trying to be bold and yeah. But I think if you have that connection and high trust, that's probably what you did with your kids. That's probably why they're so independent.
Yes,
They
yes.
felt
It
safe
was
enough
it
to do.
was not unwavering. I just want to be clear. I didn't figure all this out on a like straight line. Who I am today is not who I was at your stage. I was not having this conversation at your stage of parenting. I was just trying to do everything right already. That was me. But when you talk about what were you just talking about? Hmm, Perimenopausal moment. See, this is the difference between postpartum and perimenopause. It might be the same. Actually, it might be the same, different reasons. Speaking of postpartum, though, I do
Yeah.
want to go to the new baby experience. How do you
Yeah.
have a new baby inside the homeschool experience?
Oh my gosh. Um, having a baby, I applaud anyone who's doing it because it is really interesting because we're getting into so my oldest son is second grade,
Yeah.
and then my 3.5-year-old, like he's super smart and he's like telling my friends about his intestines and all parts of the body, and they're like, how does he know this? They're like, he sits with my 7-year-old and we all do school together.
Yeah.
So he knows way more than he needs to know, but it's great.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think once you bring a baby into it and you're at this stage where it's past preschool, I guess is where I felt the big shift. Because when it
Yeah.
was just two of them and one was preschool and one was a baby,
Yeah.
it was a lot of play, right? But then as you shift into some of the older grades, and now I have three, you have a crazy toddler who's you're trying to keep alive, and then a baby who you're trying to keep happy, and a second grader who I'm trying to keep learning. And so I think just being okay with changing your rhythms constantly
Yeah.
and not feeling crazy, like I said at the beginning. Like,
I don't like that.
don't
That is actually the
feel
least strongest part of me. I am not flexible. I'm like, I'm
crazy.
doing this. I'm going to go do this. Don't interrupt me. Or like, I am not flexible. So how do you actually be okay with that?
Oh my gosh, it is so learned because I'm not that person.
Yeah.
I am the person who buys the planner with the hour by hour
Yes.
blocks and diligently fills it in.
Yeah.
Um,
It's beautiful.
so
You have colored markers too? Like everything's color coded?
everything's like
Yeah.
color coded. Yeah.
Yeah. That was me too.
Um, oh my goodness. I'm way less that way now than
Yeah.
I was. Um, because I finally figured out a lot of the tension and the irritation and the parts of me that I was not proud of that would be like, we're finishing your math right now. Like,
Yeah.
baby's crying, needs a nap, but we're almost
Gonna
done.
happen.
Toddler just
Yeah.
escaped out the back door and he's in the sandbox with no pants on or something. And you're just like, we're finishing right now.
Yeah. I identify with that energy. That was me. Yeah.
And
It's happening.
I'm like going, this is a you problem. Everyone is doing their job, right? The toddler's supposed to be doing shenanigans. The baby's supposed to be crying and wanting a nap. Everyone's doing their part. You just have to take a breath and relax because otherwise you can't function. So being able to look at it and see it for what it is and say, this is why I homeschool. I feel like I tell myself this all the time. Trina, this is why you homeschool. We have the freedom to stop right now, take a breath or five, however many it takes, and start over or
Yeah.
stop for the day. That's also totally okay. And I've done it. You're like,
Yes.
today's not the day.
Yeah.
Today's the day. We're going to stop.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Because that's what I see in hindsight is I wish I had more of that energy more often where I said, or where I could identify how are kids really learning? Because when they're not learning is when you're like, you're going to learn this and we're going to get through this. They're not learning. They're just helping you check off your boxes, drill sergeant, homeschool mom.
Yeah. Yeah, when you find yourself like yelling over to other children, like 9 times 3, and you're like saying it over and over, and your your
We're not
7-year-old is holding his ears, going like, I don't know.
Yes, yes, exactly. I wish
Like,
I had more of that
not good.
energy way back then. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
really wise words, Trina. So practically, how are things? I know that things are shifting really fast for you right now because when a baby, is new in your world, solidly, at least for the first 6 weeks, you just are looking for, feminine hygiene products and, Can somebody make me sandwiches for 3 in the morning because I'm going to need to eat while I'm nursing? Or, like, where are those ugly mesh panties? Or, all that stuff. You're like just trying to cover the basics and wade through all the stuff that's on the floor in the master bedroom. That was my experience. So solidly 6 weeks and possibly more, of course. And then after that, you're just slowly getting a little bit more routine back and just like a little bit more predictability, but it's different because now you have another person. So where are you at in the 9-month postpartum phase?
Mm. I think around this time, most littles, not all, but most are getting closer to a by the clock schedule, which is
Yeah.
beautiful because then you can start actually roughing in sometimes for when you might do different activities, either with school or outside of school. So we try to be really smart with the times that he's asleep. Those are great opportunities to work on school. Like there's your chance. That's your window, to get in anything like that. And trying to separate the things that can be done, like work that can be done independently versus work
Yeah.
we need to do together, like thinking of it in two buckets. If it's stuff you don't need me a lot for, like copy work or things like that, okay, you take that in your room where it's quiet and the baby's awake, and you can go take your time and go as slow as you want, and no one's watching you, and people like that. The kids need to be alone to do some of the things, and
Yes.
that's okay. And the time that we need focused, then we plan for that. We say,
Yeah.
okay, Mike is asleep, then we're going to do XYZ.
Yeah.
And that's been really, really, really lovely because I do miss that concentrated, quiet time. And sometimes that also means a toddler with a bucket of Duplos in his room with the door shut.
Yes. Yeah.
My oldest and I sitting doing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give for homeschool moms that are in that phase? They're either pregnant and, maybe there's some homeschool mom out there that's pregnant and has no issues with pregnancy, but that was not my experience. Either in the early phase, the early trimester where you're feeling sick and just tired all the time, or else in the end stage of pregnancy. For me, it was like 34 weeks on where I was like, can I just like get the baby out already? I had so much false labor and I had so much discomfort for so many reasons, the second to fourth babies, that I was like, could it just be done now? But it was like 8 more weeks. And so what do you say for moms that are in the throes of all of that?
As it relates to homeschooling,
Or even
um,
just their lives. Yeah.
oh gosh, there's just so much. But I
Yeah.
think as it relates to homeschooling, the part that helped me the most, was just there's a mother that I have followed on social media for a really long time, and she has 5 little boys, which sounds really hard, and a little girl.
Wow.
And yeah, sounds really hard.
Yeah.
But her encouragement was always to look at what they are learning outside of textbooks during that time
Yeah.
when you have a new baby.
Yeah.
Um, there is so much growth happening that your kids are getting just in how to be a good human and how to be helpful and take care of siblings, and the independence that grows out of allowing them to do more for themselves. Like you will see probably the biggest growth of your children's lives during that period when you don't have a textbook out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they have empathy, they have sympathy, they have um, you know, they have these moments where they have to step up, whether it's I'm really hungry, I need a snack, or I want a peanut butter and jelly, and you're like, you know what? I believe you can make this. I'm nursing. You can do it.
I believe in you. Also, I believe you can do a 5-course meal. Let's try.
And you see them rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
And you actually notice that when you were highly capable and you didn't have the time limitations, you were probably doing too many things for them anyway.
Yeah.
Like life skills that were born out of having the third child for both of my kids, enormous growth. They
Yeah.
can do laundry, they can make sandwiches, they can figure out how to, get the stool and wash their hands by themselves with no help and reach things and, whatever it is. And they help each other. Those are the skills that also, that's why we're homeschooling. That's why
Yeah.
they're home. Like we want to
Yeah.
teach them to be good humans and focusing on what all they are learning, not what they are not learning. Don't feel guilty that you didn't do math because they're probably ahead anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if they're not, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. So just
Yeah.
take breaks, take as long as you need. School can be 20 minutes. It can be 10 minutes.
Mhm.
They're going to be fine. And they're going to
Yes.
be better than fine. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful, beautiful words. I can so feel it. You're so in the thick of the homeschool mom experience. You're in the trenches, as I say, but I don't want to make it sound like it's a military thing or that we signed up for the army. And at the same time, you're really in the middle of the biggest, like the really juiciest parts of family life and also the most demanding. But,
Mhm.
I remember there being moments with you where it was a lot. And I just want to say, I see you and I saw all that you did to prepare for this. And that was amazing. Like you put next level energy into strategizing. How am I going to do this and do this well? And I'm just like, hats off to you.
Thank you. And I think the crazy part is so that the point that I met you in that journey, because basically if I back up a little bit, I don't mind sharing. But I had two children. I was happy with two children, and we ended up surprised with a third.
Yeah.
And it's been the coolest thing ever. But at the moment when I thought, oh my goodness, I might be pregnant, because I had a very difficult birth experience with my first and another kind of traumatic experience at birth with my second. And those were the reasons I always wanted more children. I just didn't want to be postpartum again because I had such a struggle with postpartum anxiety and depression. And
Yeah.
I did not want to be postpartum ever again.
Hmm.
And I was at the point where my youngest was turning 2 and I felt like life was going to open up. I had literally gotten my new planner for the year. I had filled out all my goals, all the things I was going to do. Now that like I felt more portable and I could
Yeah.
go and do all these things. And so when I thought I was pregnant, I made a decision before I ever even peed on the stick. I
Yeah.
said, okay, Trina, if you are pregnant and you are doing this again, what is the plan? And I sat in that and I thought about it and I was like, okay, first things first, I will get a therapist and
Yes.
I will talk out any of these issues and I will try to understand myself better and try to avoid some of these things that I feel like were pitfalls before. And I was kind of like midway on that journey when I came across you at like I think it was a working homeschool moms
Yeah.
event.
Yeah.
And I heard you speak and took you up on like the one phone call
Yeah.
to kind of feel out the rapport and everything. I'm like, wow, she just really gets me. And so we started working together. And honestly, because I was in this mode of I'm going to think of everything. I'm going to train for this like an Olympian
You
and
did.
not happen to me again.
Hmm.
And I was reflecting on that just recently and thinking if we had not had some of the conversations we had, that could have ended very badly for me.
Mm.
To think that you could prepare for something and avoid all discomfort, pain, uncertainty, anxiety, hormone changes, to think that you could control your way out of that, which is kind of what I was doing in the beginning. It was just this like heavy pull to try to control everything.
Yeah.
But the shift became when we started speaking, it was like, okay, so you're telling me, I just remember you asking me, so you're telling me if you do all of these things perfectly, that means nothing bad is going to happen. And it was like, no, obviously that's not right either. And it took me a little bit, oh, wait a minute. But really to get to the place where I went, I can do, like, two things are true at once. I can prepare for this out of the wisdom that I have grown over to other children, to other postpartum experiences. I can take that wisdom with me and I can change what's changeable.
Yeah.
I can prepare myself by knowing myself better, trying to rally support around myself,
Yep.
asking for help, talking to my husband about this is exactly what I need from you,
Yep.
talking to my mom about I need you watching me for signs of depression. I need
Yeah.
you right there telling me when I don't want to go outside or I don't want to go anywhere, saying, you're going
Yeah.
and I'm watching your kids, not do you want to go? It
Yeah.
was that small of a difference. I need you to say the words, you're leaving and I'm staying here with the kids.
Yeah.
Because I won't say yes. You have to tell me that it's happening. But it was really those type of preparations, because if we had not had the conversation, it would have gone into the control arena instead of the let's plan for what we can plan for, knowing full well that we don't get to control the outcome.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's going to be okay. We're going to work on it, whatever it is, however it goes. We did our best and we don't control outcomes.
Yeah. I
and
truly wish I was there at your delivery. I said that to you. I was like, I would so have enjoyed, like, once upon a time I did labor and delivery, but I don't qualify for that. But I'd love to be a doula. I was like, I would love to be your doula. This would be so cool. Or at the very least, meet your little. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband was my doula. I always said I should make him a t-shirt. Like, my husband is my doula. Someone should do that.
Yeah, that sounds like an Etsy shop for homeschool moms, which we should definitely have as a conversation sometime. How do you incorporate work into your homeschool mom life? Trina has mentioned that a couple times that she does that as well. And clearly you've got the planner and the colored markers out, and things are starting to align in that direction. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you, and I really think we should have you back and have a conversation maybe further in the future, partly to see where things have gone when the kids have grown up a little bit. That discussion about being a boy mom, I clearly do not know that because I have a boy, but he has 3 older sisters, so it's a different energy. And he loves playing chess, not bouncing around on the trampoline. So, but anyways, that discussion, and then of course the working mom discussion, like, really, Trina, wow, you did amazingly. You did a full plan, just like you said, an Olympian-sized homeschool mom, Enneagram 1 plan, and you did it. And even though we can't control the outcomes in our life, you set everything up so that you could be prepared to do or to engage it however it came. I remember this moment where you're like, I can't do this. And I remember saying, no, you are doing this.
Yep.
You did it.
Yes.
And you're still doing
it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I don't think I could have done it as gracefully without you. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I am honored to walk alongside. This has been a very interesting conversation. It's very hard for me to go, okay, wait, where should I? Okay, no, there's so many good things. We literally covered everything I always talk about. So I'm like, wow, that was amazing. Is there any last words of advice or encouragement that you wanted to leave?
Oh my gosh. I think just for homeschool moms, you're probably doing so much more than you even realize. And if all you did today was just love on your kids and connect with your kids, that will pay you the biggest dividend. So if you have to drop everything and just be with them and connect with them, you won't regret that time.
It was such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for all your wisdom, sharing all of your experience. I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope this episode has been as edifying for you as it has been for me. It was a pleasure spending time with Trina, and it's been a pleasure spending time with you. If this podcast was an encouragement for you, would you share it with another homeschool friend who you know would benefit too? And would you consider sharing a review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to this podcast too? When you share that review, you can always screenshot it, send it to me, and I'll offer you free access to the upcoming Homeschool Mom Room, which this next Friday we will be offering the Writer's Room. Yes, we're going to continue the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective throughout the summer. If you'd like to learn more about postpartum tools and strategies and perspective shifts that might benefit you, you're welcome to head over to the show notes to this episode titled If You're Dealing with Postpartum Overwhelm in Your Homeschool on my website, Capturing the Charmed Life, because on the show notes, I share my story of postpartum depression, how I dealt with it, and also the strategies, plans, and perspective shifts required to move into a healthier state of mind as a homeschool mom. Remember that you can access the Reimagine Your Homeschool training. There's a free training available over on my website as well. And if reimagining your upcoming homeschool sounds like a good plan for this summer, then book a conversation with me to learn more about the Reimagine Your Homeschool group coaching program. All the show notes and resources discussed in this episode are found at my website, www.capturingthecharmedlife.com. And if you're not hearing this from anyone else, I want you to know you can do this homeschool thing while you have babies brought into your home, whether you birth them or adopt them or foster them. It's a lot. It's remarkable. The memories are ginormous. But though it be a lot, you got this, girlfriend.